Good morning, Mr. Seleka. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chairperson.
Are you ready?
We are ready, Chairperson.
Okay.
The first witness for today, Chairperson, is Ms Nonkululeko Dlamini, formerly Venete.
Yes.
And she's ready to take the oath.
Please administer the oath or affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
I'm Nonkululeko Dlamini.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No, I don't.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
I do.
Do you swear that the evidence will give will be the truth, the whole truth and nothing else but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you. You may be seated, Ms. Dlamini.
Thank you, Chairperson. Ms Dlamini is legally represented, Chair. Perhaps the advocate could place himself on record.
Yes. You can do it from where you are. Just switch on the mic, yes.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Justice, and thank you, Mr. Seleka. My name is Mkhululi Stubbs. I'm from the Johannesburg Bar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stubbs. Chairperson, for this witness, we will use Eskom Bundle 10. And in that file, it will be Exhibit U21.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Dlamini, is it Dlamini? I should refer you as Ms. Dlamini, is that correct?
Yes, that's fine.
Yes, thanks. So the file is also there before you, Eskom Bundle 10. You will see the documentation relating to you is under U21. And that's the only documentation which we will refer you to. Ms. Dlamini, you have provided the Commission with an affidavit which is contained on page, and I will be referring you to page numbers on the top left corner of the document, which are the page numbers in black and not the ones in red. So your affidavit is on page 411. Can you see that? That's affidavit are the undersigned Nonkululeko Dlamini. You see that? It starts from that page. And it runs up to page 416.
Yes, I see.
You see that? Just keep your microphone on. You confirm the signature to be yours on that page, 416.
Yes, I confirm, Chair.
And the date is 7 October 2020.
7 September.
7 September 2020, I beg your pardon. You see that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. It has just one annexure to it. Chairperson, may I beg leave to have the affidavit? Well, it's the only document, Chairperson, Exhibit U21, with the annexure there too. Indeed, Chairperson. The Chairperson.
The affidavit of Ms. Nonkululeko Dlamini, starting at page 411, is admitted and will be marked as Exhibit U21.
Thank you, Chairperson. Ms. Dlamini, thank you for making yourself available to assist the Commission. Just for the purposes of information and to the Chairperson, you have offered to assist the Commission in regard to a matter relating to the suspension of the executives. If you talk to the microphone.
Yes, Chairperson.
Yes. And just before we go into that, could you tell the Chairperson, please, what is your profession?
Chairperson, I am, by profession, I am a qualified chartered accountant. So I trained through getting my junior degree at Wits University and a higher diploma from the University of Natal. And I did my articles through Ernst & Young and then qualified as a chartered accountant.
I see. The particular issue before us, the suspension of the executives, relates to Eskom executives who were suspended on 11 March 2015, 3 of them, and the other one on 12 March 2015. In an affidavit of one of those executives, Ms. Tsolofelo Molefe, which we provided you with, you will recall, she states to this Commission that on the 10th of March 2015,
I'm sorry, Mr. Slegat, do you want to let Ms. Dlamini tell me first when she joined Eskom and what position she held at the time of these suspensions?
Indeed, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson. So I joined Eskom in 2003. It was 1st October. I joined as a management accountant at the corporate level. And I stayed in that position for about 3 years. I was then promoted still within the same department to be one level higher in the same space, which was basically a position that was consolidating on all the information from the various divisions of Eskom and reporting to Exco and information that would ultimately get to the board of Eskom, basically financial reporting and operations of Eskom. Around 2006, at the beginning of 2006, I then started as a finance manager in the division called Group Capital, where the whole building of the new power stations at Eskom was being executed. And I was basically the finance person that was supporting all the project managers in the projects with a team, of course. And I was then consolidating again into the division, information that would again get to the Exco and the board. I was reporting at the point of starting in that role in 2006 to a general manager. So there was a role called finance manager that reported to general manager finance, who would be responsible for other functions within the division, but still finance. She resigned from the organization about 18 months later when I was a finance manager reporting to her. And therefore, around, I think, about mid-2008, I was then promoted to be the general manager finance still for the Group Capital program. And therefore, I was still largely responsible for what was about financials of the projects, but I had to take other roles like supporting HR and other elements within the division, and had a broader team to support and basically reporting to me. So that was around 2008, and 2011, I think it was, Eskom went through quite a huge restructuring and transformation, and in that process, shared services was formed and was required to basically support the whole of Eskom with transactional processes, basically to try and drive efficiencies and make sure that we standardize ways of doing things and work from one system. And it was a shared services that was not only focusing on finances, it had the finance element, which was about accounts payable, things that are repetitive and transactional. It also built in fleet management. Eskom has a very huge fleet across the country, and we needed to basically consolidate that function to get efficiencies in the procurement processes, but also to be able to support the business, because you would find one business with vehicles that they don't need while others are going to buy vehicles. And it was about trying to get the culture of sharing for the parts of the business that were in the same vicinity. The Shared Services Center also took care of some HR processes, that is the hire to retire, where they were not necessarily strategic but could be transactional. So it had about 5 functions in it. So we set it up in 2011. It had another element called master data management, basically to clean the data in the organization. So it started in 2011, where we had to work with the organization and pull the people into this unit called Shared Services, which we achieved. In 2011, 12, 13, we were going through really the setup and stabilizing. But around 2014, it had fairly stabilized and all the issues were resolved. And around 2014, Eskom was also going through quite significant financial challenges, amongst others, besides load shedding and other issues that were a challenge. And in that process, including the fact that the tariff was just never enough to cover the financial needs of the business. So in around, I think it was the beginning of 2014 or even earlier, there was a project that was designed with the assistance of external consultants. It was called Business Productivity Program. And really it was looking across again the business to extract efficiencies and to make sure that whether it be procurement, maintenance, and other stuff, we were doing work more efficiently. If I recall, at that point in time, there was a gap of about 225 billion in the tariff application that we had made. And the understanding was that the business had to extract close to 70 billion to basically assist in closing the gap. So I wasn't part of the design of the program, but I was then requested to take over when it moved to implementation phase, and it reported to the Chief Financial Officer or the Finance Director, and that was the role I took over at the beginning of 2014. And for most of that year, and it was really a virtual structure which reported to the board again and EXCO to basically track whether we were getting these savings, because the idea was to get to 70 billion over a period of about 5 years. And at the start, it would be slow, but we were expecting it to pick up. So virtually, I was managing a team that was coordinating the structure across the business and reporting that information both to EXCO, and it reported to a board subcommittee called Finance Investment Committee on frequent intervals. And that was at the time I then was requested, that was most of 2014, and in 2015 March, that is when the suspensions then happened.
So what was your position in March 2015?
So I was still a senior general manager in shared services, because when I took over the business productivity, I didn't have to relinquish that role, but it was not so demanding. So I took more accountability and activity on the business productivity program. So I was shared services senior general manager.
And did you report to Ms. Molefe?
I reported to Ms. Molefe, yes.
Okay, all right. Mr. Selega.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, then Ms. Dlamini, let's go right into what Ms. Molefe has said, and you deal with that aspect in your affidavit, being that on the 10th of March 2015, you received telephone calls from Mr. Koko. If you could please tell the chairperson Where were you when the calls were received? And what were your activities at the time of the telephone calls being received from Mr. Koko?
Yes, so Chair, it was the week of the 9th of March. So we had a finance strategy session, where we went as a finance team. So Ms. Molefe, as the Chief Financial Officer, had probably 9 or 10 people reporting to her, and I was one of them. So we had scheduled in time to be spending 2 days at a venue called, at the time it was called Eskom College. I think it's now called Eskom Academy of Learning. We were scheduled to spend 2 full days, the 9th and the 10th at the venue, with the assistance of a facilitator to go through this finance strat session. The 9th being the first day started late. We didn't start early. I can't remember, but we started probably close to midday. So we went on for most of, for the rest of the day once we started. And we continued on the 10th. I think we started on time on that day. And we took a break for lunch. I think it would have been around 12, because the program was then pegged, having lost a day before. So we went for lunch, and the lunch was in the same venue. So we had boardrooms downstairs, and I think the lunch venue, you had to go upstairs. We spent about an hour there. So when we finished, we were to start, round about 1, I think it was. So we were to start, and I received a call as we were walking back to the venue, and we were walking in a group. Ms. Molefe was there, and the other team members, colleagues, we were working together. And I picked up the call, and it was Mr. Koko. And he then asked, much as I might not repeat it word for word, but he inquired where I was, and I indicated I was there at a strat session at Eskom College. He requested that I meet with him at Melrose Arc quite urgently. And my response was, well, we are at a strat session. I may not be able to leave right now. And I think it was quite a quick conversation, and it sounded urgent. And at that moment, because we were walking in a group and Ms. Molefe was there, and instinctively there was no conversation before that, I then said to her, do you know what is happening at Melrose Arc? Because I've just received a call from Mr. Koko. And really it was to determine whether it was critical that I go there, given that generally when you are at a strat session, it's usually a period that you try not to disturb with work issues. And because in my role in shared services and business productivity program, I worked with all the executives across. It was a function, well, both functions required that I support the business across. So I did have a lot of interaction with various executives at different times. And therefore, to check the importance of the requirement to be at Melrose Arc with Ms. Molefe was just to assess if it would be okay for me to leave, and would she know what was happening there. So that was quite a quick conversation, because it was just as the facilitators were waiting for us to start. And I then did indicate to him that I cannot actually leave the strat session right now, and I have engaged Ms. Molefe. It is not advisable that I leave. So that was the engagement.
Could you tell the chairperson, you say you were working with a number of executives, but you have also earlier said to the chairperson that you reported to Ms. Molefe. Is that correct?
Yes, as functionally, Chair, I reported to Ms. Molefe because I was part of the finance team, and generally the projects I was leading were led in the finance space. However, because issues were around how operations were run, and each of the divisions had their own finance functions, and a lot of decisions to make the projects successful needed executives. I did interact a lot. I mean, if you look at the Shared Services Center, it had a significant HR leg, and it meant that I was interacting with the HR team, not only the executive, but also the general managers below, and basically the whole organization. If you look at the business productivity program, it touched on maintenance issues in terms of how efficiently we were to do maintenance. It touched on primary energy issues in terms of coal procurement and so on. So indeed, I interacted with all executives generally in my role.
Yeah. When you say you interacted with them, does that mean or doesn't that you are reporting to them? Because you use the word functional reporting to Ms. Molefe. What would you use in relation to the other executives? Is it just interacting with them?
Yes, so functionally I reported to Ms. Molefe because any leave approval or my whereabouts were under her leadership. But in terms of the delivery on the projects, everybody was relevant. And therefore, I could be engaging an executive that's responsible for maintenance or even procurement to understand how they were doing in that division in relation to the program that we were running. So when I say I interacted, it was also in line with the function of making sure that the projects that I was running with were delivered. I mean, in shared services, for instance, if there was an issue with a vehicle or fleet issue and a particular division had issues, I had to take responsibility and make sure issues were resolved. If a supplier was not paid in a particular division and a complaint arose, I had to take a lead in ensuring that the issue is resolved. So because the functions were led in finance but were impacting the whole business, we interacted with all executives in that sense.
Okay. So you are with your functional, what?
Functional executive.
Supervisor, manager.
Your functional person you report to. You are being called at this stage in a strategy session. You are in a strategy session with the person you report to. You are being called by Mr. Koko, you say. And he's calling you to join him where he was. If you're not, just say yes.
Yes, Chair.
Yes. Was he already at Melrose Arch? Do you know that was the position, or was he somewhere with a view to also proceeding to that venue? Is that something that transpired in the discussion?
Well, not in that detail, Chair, but in the way that he indicated that it was urgent, it sounded like he was already there.
Okay, all right. Okay. Yes, continue. Oh, yeah, you then, you said you didn't think you could join him because you were still busy in the session, is that right?
Yes, Chair. So because we had a full day session at the Eskom College, I indicated that I cannot join your meeting because I am currently in a session. And in fact, I checked with Ms. Molefe basically to understand what was happening and to assess if it was something she knew about and whether it was something she believed I could leave the strat session. Because, Chair, what would happen in certain instances, you could be in a meeting with one executive, but if you make an example of an issue that needed to be unlocked immediately and a particular executive needed that support, it would happen that you leave one meeting to go, and because it was a full day start session, if it was a case of you can leave this for 30 minutes and then come back, because it does happen in strat sessions where people have got urgent matters, they leave and come back. But it was to assess for me whether the request from Mr. Koko was more important than what Ms. Molefe required
Yes.
us for at the college.
And what did Ms. Molefe say in response to you?
No, her response, Chair, was no, you cannot go. We need to be here for the day.
Yes. Going back to the conversation you had with Mr. Koko, what did he say to you once you had told him that you didn't think that you'd be able to join him because you were busy in this session?
Yes. Chair, so I think in that short space of time, I did give him feedback that I actually cannot go. I cannot leave the meeting I'm at now. And to my recollection, it was around that time when I said I cannot join that he actually asked that I send him my CV in the meanwhile.
Yes, and what did you agree to send him your CV?
So we were rushing to the venue at the time, and to my recollection, I did say, well, I can send you the CV, but I can't join. But I had not assessed what it was about, because it was, I think when I just reflect, it was a period of less than 10 minutes from us walking from the venue of lunch to get into the venue of the strat session and needing to start, and having to check with Ms. Molefe and go back. So it was quite a quick conversation.
Mm-hmm. But you did ultimately send him the CV on that day?
Yeah, so Chair, we were at the Eskom College and I had my laptop. And to my recollection, I forwarded it to him. But because it was a strat session, generally you don't keep laptops and cell phones on. So I think I tried at some point to send it because you would have had a tea break somewhere in between. So I think I tried to send it. But what then happened later is that as we were closer to finishing the session, he followed up having not received it. And it might have been a case of the network or because we were not at our workstations as such.
Mr. Slegger.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, Ms. Dlamini, you would be called from one meeting to the next if there is something urgent and you would come back. But would that be in a situation like this, where an group executive is calling you to come outside of your work premises?
So, Chair, Eskom itself had many venues. We were based at Megawatt.
But may I add this? Sorry, may I add this? Outside of your work premises to a shopping mall or a shopping center, something unrelated, a premise unrelated to Eskom.
So it was a rare thing, Chair. I wouldn't say it had happened many times. So as much as Eskom had Megawatt Park and other venues in Sunning Hill and other areas, generally it would be you are in Sunning Hill, you are called to come and meet an executive in Megawatt Park, or it could be so we had offices in Pretoria, mainly, and so on. But it was the first time that I got called to a venue like that.
Yeah, so this would have been strange to you that you should meet him at Melrose Arch. It would have been a strange request.
Yeah.
Or unusual?
So not straight, because we were supporting executives with our functions, and so maybe maybe that's it. Maybe it was a bit unique or different or unusual. Hence, I decided to check what could be happening there, and it's not a venue that even in my personal capacity I would have frequented at any point in time.
Yes. So
you say you didn't get a chance to ask him the reason for him to ask you to go to that venue? Did you say you did not get to ask him that? So
in that few minutes of conversation, Chair, I would have asked, but I don't think there was a straight answer to say there is this happening. It was, it's quite urgent.
Oh, okay.
But as I say, it was a short time, and it sounded very urgent when I said I couldn't come. And when I actually checked with Ms Molefe what was happening, so it was quite a quick conversation. I did check, you know, because generally when you are called for a meeting, you also want to just assess what you need to prepare in terms of the various activities you might be working on. So I did ask, but I don't think I necessarily got a specific response.
When he asked for your CV, did you ask him the reason for him asking for your CV?
Yeah, so Chair, because of the sequence where, so he says, come, it's urgent, and I say, I cannot come, and he says, okay, in the meanwhile, you can send me your CV. I may not recall specifically, because the conversation again was quick. So I probably did ask, but I don't recall a response. Now, again, for an executive to ask for your information like that was not a frequent thing, but it had happened to me before, because I think in 2009 or so, or no, 2010, I was nominated for an Executive of the Year, and it so happened that there was a request for me to provide information which was talking about my history, my career, and so it's not a usual, frequent thing, but it had happened to me once before, and I provided that information, and then I realized it was for the citation for the award process, and this was another round, and it being asked by an executive, it was not a usual thing, but it was not something that was asked by a stranger of me.
You say you tried to send a CV and you think there might have been a connection issue. Mr. Koko followed up. Could you tell the chairperson, when you say he followed up, what does he say to you? Is he following up by telephone call?
Or maybe let's put it this way. After you had this conversation with Mr. Koko and you checked with Ms. Molefe, and Ms. Molefe said no, she needed you to be in the session, but therefore you didn't go to Melrose Arch. Did you and Mr. Koko speak to each other later in the day?
Yes, so Chair, what actually happened is, so I didn't go at lunchtime, I went back to the session. And I think in between, I attempted to basically forward the CV at the time. Then later in the day, I think the session would have finished around 5:30. He followed up and requested that we meet later in the day.
He called you?
Yes.
Mr. Koko?
Mr. Koko called again to require that we meet.
Are you able to say around about what time this might have been?
So it would have been, Chair, as the session finished, which was around, I think it was any time from 5:30 onwards, but before 6:30.
After 5?
Yes.
Yes. And did you meet then?
So I was in Midrand already because the Eskom...
You were?
I was in Midrand. Midrand
Yes.
has, that is where the Eskom Academy of Learning is. So we were there in the venue. And...
where the session?
That's where the session was held.
Yeah, yes. That is the session with Ms. Molefe
With Ms. Molefe and the team.
Yes.
And therefore, he did follow up later and requested that we meet. And to my recollection, because it was not even a long meeting, hardly a 20 minutes meeting, on my way from the Eskom college home, I met him on the way. It might have been a KFC or a McDonald's restaurant, but it was on my way after the session.
Oh, the two of you made arrangements and you met on your way home,
Yes.
and you can't remember whether it was at KFC or McDonald's, but one of the two.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, and how did the conversation go this time?
So in that conversation, Chair, still he was following up that he didn't receive the CV, and because I had not had a comprehensive conversation, I do recall I left the car with my laptop to go into the venue where we were meeting, And it was still about following up on receiving the CV, which I again checked, and it seemed he had not received. What I do recall is that as I tried to check if I had sent it, he did give me an alternative email address to say, try and send it in this address. And that was the conversation. And at that point, I was also trying to find out what was happening that required this information. And at that point in time, he related that there were suspensions that were going to happen, and he was also getting suspended. And he indicated that I might be asked to act in that role, in the role, because there was, not in those words, there was a chance that the FD was also in the list of suspension, because if you just look at the Eskom roles at executive level, they are very technical. It's engineers per division, and then the support function, the functions in the finance, HR. So he indicated that he was getting suspended, and there were other executives that were getting suspended. And that's when it transpired. But when we had the conversation, it didn't end with him telling me who had requested that he requests my CV, and the fact that he also was aware that he was also getting suspended. And I know I tried to go there to understand, why are the suspensions coming, what has happened, because I wasn't, Chair, aware, and much as I have not listened to all what has happened in the commission, but I wasn't aware of the activities from the 6th to the 10th. When I got the call, I wasn't aware of all those activities. I was just continuing with my daily activities until I got that call from Mr. Koko to go to Melrose Arc.
So he said he was going to be suspended, and he said there was a possibility that the financial director would be suspended as well.
Yes, Chair, and other executive, but I don't think he necessarily gave me the numbers of how many.
Yeah, what I wanted to find out is whether those are the only names he mentioned in connection with suspension, namely himself and the financial director, and he didn't mention anybody else.
To my recollection, Chair.
Yes, okay. Did he indicate how many people were going to be suspended?
No, I don't recall specifically him giving me all the names, or that there were going to be so many.
Yes.
But I know he did mention himself,
Yes.
and he did mention that the finance director.
And he said, did you say he said there was a possibility that you could be asked to act in the position of the financial director?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, okay, all right. What else transpired during that conversation?
Chair, that really was the focus of him wanting to meet with. There wasn't much more that we discussed. I think we were not in that venue for more than 20 minutes, because the first part was to try and open my laptop and get the CV to go, and then the other discussion was the suspension. So it wasn't a long conversation or a long time in that discussion. So there wasn't much else that transpired.
Did he tell you during this meeting who you were going to have met in Melrose Arch if you had made yourself available for that meeting during the day?
No, he didn't, and I didn't ask either, because in the discussion, the Melrose Arc, it was him that called, and I wasn't even aware who was with him, so I didn't necessarily explore how many people, but I got therefore a sense that it means the reason that he needed to meet me probably is what he was going to discuss with me at Melrose Arc. But no, I didn't ask the question of who was at Melrose Arc.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So, Ms Dlamini, you confirming to the chairperson that this was on the 10th of March 2015. This meeting is on the 10th of March 2015.
Yes,
you confirm to the chairperson your meeting with Mr. Koko is in the evening, on the evening of that day, the 10th of March 2015, correct?
Yes, Chair.
You confirm that he meets with you requesting you to provide him with your CV, correct?
Yeah, yes, Chair.
And he, in the process, he tells you that he's going to be suspended along with other executives, but he doesn't give you the number. You say you can't recall.
Yes, Chair, not to my recollection.
But he does indicate to you that the FD will be one of those executives, and there's a possibility that you might be asked to act in her position.
That's correct, Chair.
With regard to the FD, did he say she would be one of those to be suspended, or she would be suspended, or did he say there was a possibility that she could also be suspended? I thought earlier on you said, he said there was a possibility that the FD could also be suspended. Do you remember exactly what he said?
Yeah, Chair, I think it was along the lines, there's a possibility the FD is going to be suspended.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Did you, two things. One is your CV. In that meeting now with him, do you ask him, but why do you want my CV?
I did, Chair. So I did, because it was very clearly urgent in the way that he needed it. But I did ask, and again, him being the executive at Exco, and I basically operated one level below him, it was not an interrogation in, I will not give you unless you tell me why you need me. I was just trying to understand what was happening that would require my CV.
Yes. Because you were not applying for a job, were you?
No, not internally, Chair. I was outside.
Yes. No, was he aware that you are applying for a job?
No, he wasn't.
Did you ask him to source a job for you?
No, I didn't.
So, I mean, if you're asking him, but why do you want my CV? It's not you want to interrogate him. It's just that you want to know, where's my CV going? Didn't you want to know?
No, I did. And as I indicate, I did ask what it was going to be used for. So what was, Chair, what transpired therefore is that when he indicated that there was an issue of suspensions and
A possibility that you could be asked to act.
a possibility that I could be asked to act, and he didn't necessarily indicate who was asking him to collate CVs, because one issue was why is it that my CV is required, and the indications was that there is a possibility that you may be asked to act. And Chair, at that moment, my thoughts would have been, it's probably a process that the board is coordinating, that he's coordinating for the board, because any suspensions would be ideally handled at board level, but I was not having a direct interaction with the board around a matter like that. But knowing that he was an EXCO member and EXCO interacted with the board, much as he didn't give direct responses and had requested though my CV, my assumption was that he was probably working with, not in a sense that it was necessarily me that was definitely going to act, because we had had a number of scenarios where a finance director left and another executive acted. So we had quite a capable team at different times, because I do recall that when one director left, or one finance director left, there was a period of 6 months where someone else acted. So it was along the lines of, there is a possibility you're going to be acting, there's a suspension. So I wasn't sure if he was collating for the board various information, but there wasn't a direct response.
So are you saying to the chairperson, you understood his request for your CV to relate to the possibility of you going to act in the position of FD? you made that connection. Is that what you're saying to the
Yes,
chairperson?
Chair, because at that moment, that was the only conversation that we had. I was not looking for a
Yeah.
job. I wasn't aware of any other activity.
And are you saying to the chairperson that you got the impression that he's doing this exercise, the collation of CVs, on behalf of the board?
Yes, Chair, that was the only assumption I could make because a process would be managed at board level, so I wouldn't know who would be, but a process that affects executives would be driven at board level.
Yes. And in this case, the FD is still in her place, your functional line of reporting. She's still in her place, so she hasn't left.
Yes, Chair, she was
Yes.
there.
This, which makes it even more strange, isn't it? No, I'm talking about the example you were saying, somebody, the FD had left previously and somebody acted in their position. But in this case, the FD is still there, and you are told beforehand of the possibility of a suspension, the possibility of you acting. All these things haven't happened.
That's correct, Chair. They had not happened.
But isn't that how it would work, Mr. Seleka? You wouldn't wait until the FD is out before you look for CVs. You would look for CVs before she leaves to see who is going to act, because you might not suspend her if you don't have somebody to act. So that would be my expectation, that the CVs would be asked for before the FD is suspended, because as the board or whoever in authority, it would be irresponsible to suspend without knowing whether you will get a suitable person to act in that position.
Yes, Chair, they will tell us when they come here, because we understood that the suspensions by the board itself had not been decided, at least as of the 10th of March 2015.
Yes, but it's clear from what from the evidence I've had that there were certain people who were contemplating that the executives would be suspended. So I think they were doing their homework. Yes. Okay, let's continue.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Dlamini, the meeting you had with Mr. Koko on your way home, is it at Melrose Arch or somewhere else?
She said at KFC or McDonald's on her way home. I take it couldn't have been Melrose Arch, was it, Ms. Dlamini?
Yeah, Chair, I never went to Melrose Arch.
Yes.
Because at the time I was asked to go, it was around midday, and it was
Yeah.
at that moment I was walking with the FD back to the venue.
Yeah,
And
the
it was-
Melrose, the KFC or McDonald's that you talk about would be in Midrand, or where would it be?
Chair, it would have been around Midrand, and I was trying and recall which one would it, because it
Yeah.
was just on the way. I just couldn't figure out which one it was.
Yeah, don't
And
worry.
it was a
I
short
don't think
meeting,
it's
so-
important
Yeah.
which one it was. Okay, Mr. Lega, let's
Thank you, Chair.
make some progress.
Yes. Ms. Dlamini, you have seen Mr. Koko's affidavit, and I want to read from that paragraph where he refers to you. You will recall he says about you, Ms. Nonkululeko Dlamini was not only a colleague, but a family friend. I called her on the day, and the day he refers to the 10th of March 2015, and we met for dinner in the evening at Midrand. I deny that I called her to come to Melrose Arch. Ms. Nonkululeko Dlamini and I were very surprised when she was appointed the acting CFO after Ms. Molefe was suspended. Let's deal
I'm
with...
sorry, where are you reading from? Where do we find Mr. Koko's affidavit?
Chair, it's in one of the exhibit
Or it's
bundles.
not in this bundle?
It's not in this bundle. It's,
Okay.
I don't think the chairperson will have it with him, but let me provide the chairperson with. Yeah. It's in a bundle I don't think the chairperson will have there.
I think they must try and get me that bundle so that if I need to check anything, I might pick up something else that I might want to have clarified by Ms. Dlamini. But you can give me what you have, what you can give me in the meantime if you have got a spare.
Yes, I do have. I do have, chairperson.
Okay.
I'll beg leave to hand it up, which is the affidavit of Mr. Machela Moses Koko. I've opened to the paragraph I'm reading from.
So, Ms. Dlamini, it looks like Mr. Koko denies that he called you and then asked you to go to a meeting at Melrose Arch on the 10th. What do you say about that?
Chair, on the basis that the time the call came, which was around lunchtime, and on the basis that I doubt I would have dreamt up and decided to tell Ms. Molefe that I'm being called to Melrose Arch, because it was not something I had kind of rehearsed and knew that there was a meeting at Melrose Arch. Mr. Koko did call me around lunchtime and requested that I meet with him at Melrose Arch. So I am not sure.
So you are definite that he called you and that what he said to you during that conversation is what you have told me?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, okay. What about what he's saying that the two of you did have dinner that evening, namely the evening of the 10th of March?
Yeah. Chair, we met, but we didn't have dinner. It was a conversation or a meeting.
And you said it took about 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was not a long meeting. It was about 20 minutes.
Yes. Mr. Seleka.
Thank you, Chairperson. Then he further says, Ms. Dlamini, I was very surprised. Ms. Dlamini and I were very surprised that she was appointed the acting CFO after Ms. Molefe was suspended. Your comment to that, to the Chairperson?
Yeah. So Chair, as I indicated, my history with Eskom, I started in 2003. And I started working closely with Mr. Koko as I started in 2006 in the Build program. He was...
I'm sorry, Ms. Dlamini, which paragraph were you reading from, Mr. Seleka?
Yeah. Ms. Dlamini, that's the last sentence in that paragraph 47.
Yeah.
Just Mr. Koko is saying you and him were surprised.
Just hang on a second. I just want to know because I've been looking for it, and I realized that. Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay, continue, Ms. Dlamini. You were responding to Mr. Koko's assertion that the two of you were very surprised when you were appointed acting FD. What do you say to that?
Yeah. So, Chair, we, as I indicate, even in the sentence that talks about knowing each other, I've known him since I started in the Build program, and I worked with the team he led with him and other people. So we worked together from 2006 in different roles. And the question of being surprised when the announcement, or rather when we were called to act, he was not there. I actually didn't see him since that evening until we were called in the boardroom.
On the 11th of March.
In fact, I think we were called on the 12th, so I may confuse the dates because we were on the 10th at the college, and The suspensions, I think, happened on the 11th, and we were called in the morning of
On the 12th.
March.
Yeah.
And we were called by I received a call from the company secretary, Mr. Malisela Ngubwe, and indicating that the chairperson of the board needed to see us or see me in the boardroom. And in the boardroom, there was a few board members. It was
Yes, no, leave out who was there. What do you say about what he's saying? He says the two of you were surprised. Were you surprised that you were appointed as acting FD?
So, Chair, it was not a surprise because I had heard it from Mr. Koko
Yes,
on the 10th.
yes. And now when he says the two of you were surprised that you were appointed as acting FD, it gives the impression that when you got the news, you were together. Were you together with him when you got the news that you were going to be appointed as acting FD?
No, I wasn't, Chair, and that's why I'm explaining how it happened, because we were called into a boardroom, and he
Yes.
was not in the office. He
Yeah,
was not in that
he was
boardroom.
not there.
No.
Did you talk to him on that day, on the 12th?
No, Chair.
You did not talk to him?
Yeah. On that day, the activities just rolled into communicating with lenders and other people, so
Yes.
I was not with him.
Did he call you either on that day, namely the 12th, or the following day to congratulate you? And you, the two of you, had a discussion?
No, he didn't call to congratulate, Chair.
Did you ever at any stage convey to him that you were surprised that you were appointed to act as FD?
No, Chair.
So you don't know where he gets this idea from that you were surprised when you were appointed acting FD? Or do you?
No, Chair. So I don't know where he gets the idea, because on the 10th he had indicated, and it was not a definite thing, yes, and therefore from the perspective of it happening, obviously it was not a comfortable period. It was not it was a nerve-wracking period because a lot was happening in the organization.
Yes.
But it was not a case of, you've been appointed, congratulations.
Yeah.
We are so surprised because we never had that conversation.
Do you know when he might have got to know of your appointment as acting FD? Do you know when he might have got the news?
Chair, the news became public as soon as that morning, because the media announcement was made by Eskom,
Yes,
I think on
yes.
the same day, and if not later that day or the next day.
So he might have.
It was a public knowledge, but given that he had indicated it the day, 2 days before, I wouldn't know if he would have heard it. Then he would have heard that it actually happened through the news or through other means.
Do you understand why he would be surprised at you being appointed acting FD in circumstances where, on your version, he is the one who had told you on the 10th that there was a possibility that you would be appointed acting FD? Do you understand the statement on his part that he was surprised?
No, I don't, Chair.
Yes, Mr. Selega.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Dlamini, just one last point from my part. I've shared with you the minutes of the meeting of 19 March. Chairperson, you'll find that in the reference bundle, page 222.
Did I give you back the copy you gave me?
Indeed, Chairperson, thank you.
Yes, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just have a look before I give it back. Yes.
The reference bundle, page 222, that's Eskom bundle 24. Sorry, Eskom bundle 12. Chair, may I proceed?
Yes,
May I
yes,
proceed?
yes.
Yes. On page 224, it's a minute of a, this is a minute of a special board in-committee meeting held on 19 March 2015. This is the Eskom Board. And on page 224, which is page 3 of the minute, at the top of the page, it reads, a paragraph says, the chairperson accepted blame for the failure to take the board, as well as the fact that work that was already being done, e.g. interviews, etc. Then the paragraph I'm referring you to is this one. The people who were acting in place of the suspended executives were allegedly called into a meeting and knew beforehand that they would be acting. The board needed to find out how this happened. They were apparently called into a meeting and the acting CE met with them. Do you have any comment on this?
Chair, in terms of the acting, my knowledge came through the engagement I had with Mr. Koko on the 10th. I had not been in any meeting with the acting CE, and I had not been in any meeting with any other people before the acting was announced. I actually was in the meeting with them for the first time in the boardroom when the chairperson of the board was relating the suspensions and requesting the acting.
Who would have been the acting CE at the time? 19 March 2015.
Chairperson, when the suspensions happened, Mr. Zitembe Khoza was then asked to act as the interim chief executive.
Thank you. For how long did you act in the position of FD?
Chair, I acted, I think the announcement came out on the 12th when we were asked, and I acted until end of July, but I resigned from Eskom on the 1st of May. But I acted as well while I was serving my notice.
Until the end of July 2015.
Yes, Chair.
Chairperson, those are the questions from my side.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Dlamini.
Yeah,
You are done, definitely.
I am.
Yeah, okay. I take it that there is nothing that Counsel for Ms. Dlamini really would like to re-examine on. Maybe he's taking instructions. Ms. Counsel, I doubt that you have any re-examination.
I beg your pardon, Deputy Chief Justice. It almost feels strange to be sitting down while speaking to you, so I apologize for that.
No, that's fine.
I do have just one corroborating affidavit that I would ask you, Mr. Chair, not to hand up, but to refer to Ms. Dlamini as corroboration of her version of events about the phone call at Melrose Arch, and that I don't know the bundle or the pages, but perhaps my learned friend might help me. It's Ms. Molefe's affidavit. In her affidavit, I believe that she confirms Ms. Dlamini's version.
Yes, she does. She was here yesterday. She confirmed, so that's in order.
Okay.
You don't have to ask re-examine on that.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Ms. Dlamini. We appreciate that you came to assist the Commission. You are now excused.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
I think we should take the tea adjournment
Yes, Chair.
so that you can arrange for the next witness.
Yes, certainly.
We'll take the tea adjournment and we'll resume at 11:30.
Thank you, Chair.
We adjourn. Yes, Mr. Seleka.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, during the adjournment, it came to our attention that we needed to canvass just one last aspect with Ms. Venete, and we have requested her to remain for a while. She kindly agreed, and she's still here.
Yes, okay.
We are still dealing with that bundle.
Yes, let her get settled first.
Thank you, Chair.
The oath that you took earlier on, Ms. Dlamini, will continue to apply. You understand that?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Chairperson.
What page was her statement again?
It's still Eskom
Under
bundle.
21.
That page.
Yeah, okay.
Ms. Dlamini's affidavit is on page 411 of Eskom Bundle 10. Ms. Venete, an annexure to the affidavit is on page 417, which we would
Did you say, Mr. Seleka, earlier that this was an annexure to her affidavit?
It's not an annexure as such, Chairperson. It's a standalone document which was provided to her by the Commission.
Oh, because then it should be,
Mark it as an exhibit.
it would need to be an exhibit on its own, but you might have to reflect on the need to get a technician or expert to come and identify what this is so that it gets admitted from cell phone providers or somebody who has the technical know-how who can say what this is. We all know what it is, but you need, I think, somebody technical to identify it and to confirm. But you can go ahead and ask Ms. Dlamini what you need to ask him.
Thank you. Ms. Dlamini, on page 417, the Commission's investigators have sourced this information, the details of which have been shared with you. Could you confirm to the Chairperson that you have considered this document?
I have considered the document, Chairperson.
The document, just for the purposes of the record, it contains a list of dates of telephone calls that were made, presumably, and I say presumably so that you could confirm that to the Chairperson between...
Well, just indicate first what is the document as you understand it and who has provided it to the Commission. Is it the cell phone records produced by a particular cell phone company?
Is the cell phone records that would have been provided pursuant to an investigation by the Commission.
But do we know who provided it? Is it a cell phone company,
The cell phone, yes, the mobile network operators, we see the number 082, that would be presumably Vodacom, and 083 being MTN. Chairperson, we will obtain the affidavit to confirm the exact mobile operators that are involved.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just make sure you obtain an affidavit from the right people who can say the right things for this to be admitted. But I think for now you can ask Ms. Dlamini questions on the understanding that this is a document provided by a cell phone company or regulator reflecting or purporting to reflect calls made between certain numbers.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Ms. Dlamini, this documentation purports to reflect, and we seek your confirmation in regard to some of the contents herein, telephone calls that would have been made during the the dates specified on the far left, which is from 9 March 2015 to 12 March 2015, on the timestamps indicated, and the telephone calls presumably having been made from a cell phone number 082 8599 334.
Hang on. It might be better not to
mention
publicly specify anyone's cell phone number, but you can indicate to Ms. Dlamini which number on the page you want to draw her attention to. Maybe she can mention the last 2 digits of the number that you are particularly interested in, or the numbers that you are particularly interested in.
Oh, yes, Chair, that's alternatively, I will mention SCC number 1, the cell number SCC number 1, and the cell number SCC number 2. Under SCC number 2, you see that, Ms. Dlamini?
Yes, I see, Chair.
Yeah.
Well, the SCC number 1 and the SCC number, or you mean as a column?
That's right, as a column.
Yes. As a column.
In which event I will simply ask...
Well, you can always say, count from the top, from the first number at the top, count 1, 2, 3, 4. When you reach 5, that's the number I'm interested in, then you can ask her.
Yeah. So that first number, yes, under the column, as the chairperson has indicated, number 5, which is also the heading SCC number 1. Without mentioning that cell number, do you recognize the cell number, Ms. Dlamini?
Is it number, what number is it, 5?
Column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, chairperson.
So it's the number that appears as number 5 on the column described as SCC number 1.
Correct.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You recognize that cell number, Ms. Dlamini?
Yes, I do, Chair.
It's I think one can say it's a number ending with 34. Is that right?
Yes, Chair.
Yes. Do you whose number is that?
It is Mr. Koko's cell number.
Yeah, you know it.
As it is the number that I have contacted him on, or Chair, I know it. Yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Chair.
And what time is that? I think you must link that. What time does that call seem to have been made?
Can Ms. Dlamini look at column 1, 2, 3, the third column, under the heading SCC call time. The times are listed there. On the 9th, the first call is 16:29.
Yes, Chair. And to the chairperson's question, the call that I spoke to is on the 10th of March at 12:51, 38 seconds, which was about 1 minute and 34 seconds.
I'm sorry, I was... well, the number that appears at 5 relates to a call that was made at 10:38. It looks like you went to 6. I think it's the same number.
Yes.
So Chair, 6 is the right call. 6 is the right call.
6 is the right one
Yes, Chair.
at the time.
It's line number 6.
Yes, okay.
And the time is 12.
Which number called which number?
Yes. So, Chairperson, for your purposes, column SCC number 1 reflects one cell number
Yes.
throughout.
Okay, okay.
Then the next SCC number 2 also reflects one cell number throughout.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
okay. I didn't know that.
So there's only 2 cell numbers here
Yes,
in question.
okay.
Ms. Venete then is Ms. Dlamini, I beg your pardon, then is referring the chairperson to, now I'm looking at the first entry under the 10th of March 2015. The very first entry under 10 March 2015 with a timestamp at 12:51, Tuesday. So the chairperson follows from?
Yes.
Yes. So she says to the chairperson, that's the call she would have received from Mr. Koko. Is that the first call you would have received from Mr. Koko on the day
Yes, Chairperson.
of the 10th of March?
Well, let's first see. Now, under SCC number 1, under that column, there is one number.
Yes, Chair.
And then under column SCC number 2, there is a different number
Yes, Chair.
throughout. The number that is the same number that appears throughout from the top to the bottom on the column referred to as SCC number 2. Whose number appears under that column, Ms. Dlamini, SCC number 2? Do you know that number?
It is my number.
It is your number.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Selega,
Yes, Chair.
does this document reflect which number called which number?
Yes, then the next column, Chairperson, immediately after SCC number 2, the title is SCC person calling.
Yes.
You see that, Ms. Dlamini, as well?
Yes, Chair.
And then the last column, it's headed SCC person called,
Yes.
and then they give the name.
Yes.
So the document then, Ms. Dlamini, reflects the calls made. Should I mention the name, Chairperson? I suppose I could.
Sorry?
I should mention the name as it reflected here.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So the document then, Ms. Dlamini, reflects the telephone calls that would have been made by Mr. Machela Koko from the cell number we indicated under SCC number 1 to yourself, person called, Nonkululeko Sylvia Dlamini / Veleti, to the cell number represented or reflected under column SCC number 2. You follow that?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
This reflects that it seems to me that there were numerous calls that were made by Mr. Machela Koko to you on the 10th of March 2015. I think certainly more than 6. Do you recall whether that would be true?
Chair, it does reflect a number of calls, but when you look at column number 4, which gives you the duration of the call, you will notice that a lot of those calls are 00, which means there was no time
That you
of
did
the
not
calls
speak.
that we, yes, Chair.
Yes.
So a lot of the calls indicate that there was an attempt to call, but I was
Yes.
not reachable.
Oh, okay.
And other calls seem to be 3 seconds,
Yes,
4 seconds.
yes.
And my assumption would be it might have been going to voicemail
Yes,
or
yes.
something. So
Okay.
you will note that in this list of calls, on the 10th, indeed, there's quite a number. In fact, it's about 20-something. Only 2 calls are over a minute. It is the call that happened, basically 6, if you start from the top, it's line number 6, which was at 12:51:38 seconds, which was 1 minute 34 seconds, which is with reference to the time when we were going back to the venue from the lunch, that
Yes.
conversation I referred to earlier.
Yes,
And then if you go further down, you see a call later that is about,
1758.
Yes.
yes, Chairperson, it's about
Yes.
17:58, 20,
That took
27
3
seconds,
minutes.
which is about 3 minutes, and it's
11
round about when
seconds.
we finished the session.
And that would tie up with your evidence that after you had finished at the session, the two of you were in touch with each other.
Which was the follow-up calls, yes.
Which was the follow-up
to
call.
meet and, yes, Chairperson.
Yes. But what this does reflect is that on the 10th, Mr. Koko made numerous attempts to reach you.
Correct.
And then he did reach you at 12:58, 12:51. And he reached you again at 17:58. Those are the only times he appears to have reached you. The other times where it's only seconds, you say that must have been when he went into voicemail.
Yes, Chair, because I don't recall talking to him that many times, but also
Yes.
when it's 2 seconds, 1 second,
Yes.
it wouldn't represent a conversation. So I then assumed that it was attempts, but as I indicate, we were not necessarily with our cell phones and reachable
Yes.
the whole day.
Yes, that's on the 10th.
My calculation, Ms. Dlamini, gives me 22 telephone calls on the 10th of March.
Yes.
Yeah, he tried to reach you about 22 times on the 10th of March, and there were 2 occasions when he was able to speak to you, it seems.
Yes, Chairperson.
Yes, okay, all right.
Chair, that will be
Yes,
the
okay.
evidence we wanted to place before you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dlamini.
Thank you, Chairperson.
You are excused.
Chairperson, the next witness is here. I will allow the
Okay.
assistant to just sanitize the place.
Who will it be?
That is Mr. Norman Baloyi.
Okay.
Should I proceed to identify the bundle in the meantime, Chairperson? Should I proceed to identify the bundle in the meantime? Or should we first?
Let him get settled.
Okay.
And let's take administer the oath of affirmation.
Thank you, Chair.
Down there, yes. Please state your full names for the record.
Norman Baloyi.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
I have no objection.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes, I do.
Do you swear that the evidence will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing else but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you. You may be seated, Mr. Baloyi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Eskom Bundle 10, and under that bundle we are dealing with Exhibit 20, Exhibit U20. Mr. Baloyi, welcome. Thank you. Just keep your microphone on.
Thank you, sir.
Just housekeeping, Mr. Baloyi. Let me see whether you have the bundle I am referring to. That's Eskom Bundle 10, Exhibit U20. And that is on page, you follow the pagination on your left, top left corner, which is the pagination in black. They start with Eskom 10 and then the pagination number. Yeah. So we will disregard the pagination which is in red at the top right-hand corner. You see that? So that starts on page 302. And that is between Tremlies and affidavit. You see that I, the undersigned Norman Baloyi.
Yes, I do.
You see that? That affidavit runs up to page 312.
Yes, I can see that.
Yes. There is a signature on page, at the bottom of page 311, the page before.
Yes.
Do you confirm that to be your signature?
Yes, it is, sir.
Dated, the date is 7 September 2020. You confirm that as well?
Yes, it is.
So you confirm this to be your affidavit?
Yes. Good.
Thank you. Chairperson, I don't think your affidavit has annexures, Mr. Baloyi. Chairperson, I beg leave to have the affidavit admitted into evidence as Exhibit U20.1.
The affidavit of Mr. Norman Baloyi, starting at page 302, is admitted and will be marked as Exhibit U 20.1.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Baloyi, you have agreed to assist the Commission in regard to an issue relating to the suspension of the executives at Eskom. Correct?
I didn't get the question.
You have agreed to assist the Commission in regard to the issue relating to the suspension of the executives at Eskom.
Yes, I did.
That took place on 11 March 2015
Yes, sir.
and 12 March 2015.
Yes, sir.
Now, a lot of evidence has been laid before this commission, which I will relate to you so you can confirm. And we start firstly with that a board A new board is appointed on 11 December 2014 at Eskom.
Yes.
The Commission has been told that you were one of the board members newly appointed effective 11 December 2014.
Yes, sir.
The Commission has also been told that the board went through an induction
Yes.
process, and maybe you could tell the chairperson briefly at that induction what takes place, and according to your recollection, when was the board's induction?
I'll not recall the date, but actually all the workshops, strategic workshops and strategic issues on the meetings were always held at Eskom Megawatt Park, except when we were called by the minister to Cape Town. So I presume it should have been in Megawatt Park, Eskom.
Sorry, just address the chairperson, you presume?
Yes. Yes.
You say the induction or induction workshops took place at Eskom offices?
Yes, I believe it was in Eskom offices, chairperson.
Yes.
Because all activities that we've always had at Eskom were always at the Megawatt Park.
Yes.
Except when we're called by the minister to Cape Town.
Yes.
Yes.
You said you don't remember the date when the induction took place, but you remember the month. Was it January 2014? Was it February? Does January 16 ring a bell as a possible date?
You know, I was checking my invitations this morning, and all I could see were the invitations for committees and the board, which happened to be cancelled. I'll not recall exact date,
Yes.
but what I know is that on the same day or around maybe the second day, because I was in Polokwane when I got a call that you have been appointed, the minister wants to meet with you, and I had to drive to Pretoria. We all met as new board members and the Pretoria office of the minister. But the induction itself, I will not
You can't
say.
remember.
Yeah,
No,
but it happened not
okay.
long after.
Okay, it's not.
Okay.
It's okay.
So, you know, talking of you being called and informed of your appointment, can you tell the chairperson how did you become appointed on the board?
I think it was through the board nominations, and somebody nominated me to be in the board. And in that particular day when we met the minister, the minister said to me that, you see, I don't appoint people because I know them. I don't know you, but I appointed you because I like your skills and experience that you have acquired.
Do you know who nominated you?
I think I remember two
I
people,
guess you
but
should know.
I will not know exactly, but I think of the two, I will not recall exactly.
But do you know whether you were nominated, or did you ever see a nomination?
Yes, actually, because I had to consent to the nomination. So,
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Was it somebody that you didn't know who nominated you?
And somebody that I know.
It is somebody that you know,
Yes.
but you can't remember.
Yeah, because there were two people that did at the same time. But I can actually check my archives.
Oh, that's rather strange. Did you, at that time, were there a number of boards on which you were serving?
In 2014, The ones that I can remember, I think there were not more than 2, if there were 2.
Oh,
It was not a lot of them.
no, I'm just surprised that I thought maybe you were sitting on many boards, therefore it might not be remember who nominated you for which board.
No, actually, because there are 2 people who usually nominate me, so I will not want to mention their names without verifying
Sorry?
who are among the 2.
You know their face, but you don't know their names.
No, I know their names. I'm saying that I can check shortly about who was the one who nominated me for Eskom Board.
Oh,
But they are the people that I worked with before, are people that
Okay.
we know each other. So I will not want to speculate who among the 2 could
Okay,
have been the
all
one.
right. Okay. Mr. Selega?
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Baloyi, so you get appointed on the board. You go through an induction period, and you say you can't recall exactly when did that take place. Can you recall when was your first board meeting?
Because the first board meeting that was scheduled for the 26th of February was cancelled. And
Was the meeting of the 26th February going to be the first meeting of the board?
it was going to be the first meeting of the board.
Okay, that's
Because
good enough.
prior to that, there were committee meetings that were held.
Before that.
Yes, and I can recall that it could have been during the induction when we were listed to sit in different committees. Because as I remember that I was actually was supposed to chair Audit and Risk Committee from the initial list that was given to us by the chairperson of the board.
Yes. So that meeting was cancelled. The commission has been told that much. Do you know what reasons were given for the cancellation?
There were no reasons that were given, but I think when informed on the eve or in the evening of the meeting, maybe around 9 or 10 o'clock somewhere. So it was an SMS from the company secretary.
When was the next meeting of the board?
The next meeting was on the 9th of March.
Can you please tell the chairperson whether is that a scheduled board meeting?
I think, yes, it was a scheduled board meeting, if I remember, because we were having it for the first time. Let me not be 100% sure, because actually, during that particular meeting, the main agenda was the issue of the inquiry. I remember that some of the board members were not.
Sorry, just clarify to the chairperson. What do you say may not be 100% sure?
No, actually, because the meeting was short, as far as I remember, and the Eskom board meetings, they usually actually take the whole day. Even the committee meetings, they usually take the whole day. So, but on that particular day, I remember it was a shorter meeting. It could have been a special meeting because in that particular meeting, as far as I remember, there was a concern by the company secretary that the board one needs to have its own meeting because there have been committee meetings, but the board hasn't met, and there's a corporate plan that needs to be approved so that it can be effected on the 1st of April, and the deadline is an issue. So, hence, I'm not 100% sure whether it was an ordinary meeting or it was a special meeting. But one thing for sure is that it was a shorter meeting than the other meetings, and other people were not there, other board members were not there physically, but they connected telephonically or on video.
Mr. Tsotsi said he called that meeting specially after he had attended a certain meeting in Durban. So probably it was a special meeting.
Yes, more likely because some people were on video, because the normal board meetings, I mean, we are usually informed on time and then we make ourselves available.
Yes.
And it's very rare that you could find people being on video conference or teleconference.
Yes.
They would physically be there, yeah.
What was discussed at the meeting of the 9th?
The main agenda item for the meeting was to set up the inquiry, and the board chairperson, Mr. Zolotsotsi, he presented to us the theory or the background or the need for this particular commission that had of inquiry that had to take place. So he said that he met with the president, and yes, also the president has met with the minister.
President who? He said he met with President who?
President Zuma. Yes, he said they met over the weekend, and the meeting was on Monday. I think they could have met a day before, the way that I recall. He said that we met, and then, but the president also has spoken to the minister on the idea of having this type of inquiry. So that he met on 3 occasions with the president. Some of the meetings could have been cancelled, but there was some interaction because the president wants to have this particular issue of knowing exactly what is the state of affairs at Eskom, because the president had initiated through the cabinet the war room, and there are some reports that are not always accurate or whatever. So there's a need that we get the true facts of the affairs of Eskom.
And what was the reaction of the board members on the 9th of March to Mr. Tsotsi's proposals?
Yeah, no single board member actually accepted the proposal. No single board member accepted the proposal because, as I said earlier on, that in Eskom there's a volume of paper, a volume of work, even the board and the committee meetings. There was always a volume of paper. So you could see that people are very busy, executives are very busy with day-to-day work, and the feeling of the board members was that to have this inquiry or this commission of some sort, or to do that investigation, it is going to consume more time for the executives, because they are too much pressed and there are so many pressing issues, and there's also a war room that they are saving, the board that they are saving, the day-to-day executive work that they are saving. So the feeling was that the timing is not the perfect timing. And we are still new, we still need to interrogate some documents, we need to interrogate some things, because what we know now is what the executives have given us, but we haven't had time to interrogate this and that, whether this is true, whether this is the fact, whether this is the theory, whether this is the practice. So it was a feeling of many board members that the timing is not a good timing. And then, because he had mentioned the name of the president and the name of the minister, so there was a proposal that if we can meet with the minister
Yes.
on Wednesday, the day after Monday. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Unless there is something still on the meeting of the 9th, Mr. Slega, I think you can go straight to the meeting of the 11th.
Let me just ask Mr. Baloyi one question. Mr.
Yeah.
Baloyi, you talked about the proposal for the inquiry. Did that proposal, according to your recollection, involve the suspension of the executives on the 9th of March?
Actually, the proposal, as far as I remember, because there were issues of finance and so on, and the board chairperson said that our minister will need to be consulted together with the Minister of Finance, but it's better that we don't take it to Minister of Finance at this stage. The FD is going to deal with some of the issues of the finances and so on. So there was no other proposal on issue of suspension. But people were just not happy with the issue of inquiry. Yeah, more especially that we were informed that there was already other inquiries that just took place just before or during that particular time. And they've even executed the recommendations, so they still need time to execute those recommendations from the other inquiries, the executives.
Okay. So you mentioned to the chairperson the meeting on there was a proposal to have a meeting with the minister, and that meeting took place on Wednesday, 11 March 2015. We understand that there was a couple of meetings on that day. You can take us through those meetings. Firstly, we understand it's a meeting of the board without the minister, and then the minister arrives and she has a meeting with the board. You can start with the first one.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Advocate. Yes, we started with the minister. No, we started with the board meeting, and because the pressing issue was the corporate plan, and I think it was being presented by the CEO, Matuna. And during his presentation, there was an interruption that the minister is in, and then the board chairperson went out and asked Ms. Klein to take over as the chairperson. And then we had to wait, we had to continue until the chairperson came back with the minister. So, and then in that particular one, the minister did have a session. It was a second session actually, because the board was already having theirs, which was not finished, which was going to be completed after the minister has left.
So
What are the main features of the discussion at the board meeting before the minister arrived that you remember, which you would like to highlight?
The main feature was a corporate plan.
A corporate plan?
Yeah, corporate plan, because it was...
That the CEO was presenting?
Yes, actually, yes. And it was supposed to have been the main agenda on the 26th of February.
On the 26th?
Yes.
Yes.
So we needed to...
The stenographers are asking Mr. Baloyi to speak louder. Just drop the mic.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and raise your voice.
Okay.
Thank you. So, did you say when the minister arrived Mr. Matona, the CEO, was still presenting the corporate plan.
Yes, they were still busy presenting.
And then
But it had to be stopped so that we can attend to the minister.
raise your voice. I think your voice is quite low. So,
Okay. Yes, I think it had to be stopped because the minister was
Had
supposed to be, had arrived and was going to address us.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Selega.
Thank you, Chairperson. So, Mr. Baloyi, just tell the Chairperson on the minister's arrival, what happens in the meeting?
Yeah, during the meeting, actually, the minister told us that.
Okay, let me say this. Oh, carry on. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Okay, when the minister came and we had to stop and we attend to the minister, what I recall is that the minister said to us that she has been protecting executives of Eskom. And
She said she had been protecting who?
the executives of Eskom.
The executives of Eskom.
Yes.
Did she say who she had been protecting them from?
No, actually, because there were issues of, there were some issues from the war room. There were some, because they were providing information to the war room, providing information to the board. So I think there were some question marks around some of the documents. So because I believe that the minister was part of the war room personnel, because it was a cabinet-related committee.
When you say you think there were issues relating to the information that the executives provided to the war room, are you repeating what the minister said at the meeting, or is it something that you were aware of yourself, not necessarily that that's what the minister said?
No, actually, the main issue that she has raised, or that happened before that, is that I think it happened even on Monday when we had the meeting, when
Hang on, Mr. Baloyi. My question is, when you say you think there were some issues about information that the executives had been giving to the war room, are you talking about issues that you were aware of, or are you saying that's what the minister said at the meeting?
Okay. Actually, Chairperson, I'm telling of what came to my recollection, because I'm not sure whether the minister referred to the war room issues. But what she said to us is that because the issues of the accuracy of information is something that the board members were saying that we have interrogated some of the issues. So we don't know whether the issues that are being presented to us are true or not true. Because it could be the same thing with the war room, because it was just established after us. And then the issue of the accuracy of information is something that didn't come to the board's attention in a formal way. It was more of a speculation.
So is your answer to my question that you are not saying that that's what the minister said? You are simply telling me what you were aware of?
Yeah, it's something that I was aware of, because the minister was part of the war room, and then she was saying that she is more concerned about
No, hang
some
on.
issues. Yeah.
Don't tell me yet what the Minister said, if you say this is not what the minister said, you were aware that there were some issues relating to information that the executives were providing to the war room. Is that what you are saying at that time? That's what you were aware of?
Yes, yes.
How did you, what was your source of this information? That there were issues about the information that the executives had been providing to the war room?
I cannot say directly whether it was the issues from the newspapers or it was the issues from the Eskom media room. I cannot say with confidence of where exactly the issues were, because I was not part of that war room. And we haven't had the board meeting yet. So are those things that you pick from?
So you don't know where you got that information from?
Yes, that there was no specific reliable source. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Baloyi, the way I heard you say was that the board had gotten information which it had not interrogated, so you were not sure whether you could rely on the information, and you asked yourself, what also about information regarding the war room?
Yes. Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, but that explanation, if you give that explanation to the chairperson, it conveys the understanding that you, in fact, did not have before the board issues regarding the war room. You simply questioned, what about, given what I have, which I haven't interrogated, what about the issues regarding the war room?
Yes, because there was no formal communication around it.
Just speak louder again. There was what?
Yes, there was no specific information that was given to us about the war room, issues that we needed to be concerned about. So there was no formal communication around it. It was more of speculation or some other people's feelings about it.
Okay. Tell me the main points that the minister made at that meeting which she had with the board,
Yeah.
as you remember them.
The minister said that she has been protecting Eskom executives. And she's tired of protecting them. She wants to actually stay back and not protect them anymore. Because there have been issues about their work, and she doesn't want to protect them anymore about the type of information and the type of work that they're doing. So she will not want to protect them anymore. That was the main instance of the meeting. And then she also said that when she left, because we did interrogate, we did speak to her about raising issues and so on, but about our understanding about what she was coming for. Because the main reason of her coming was on the issue of inquiry, whether she's endorsing or she's initiating or she's supporting the inquiry to take place. Because all board members were not happy with it when it was presented.
So what did she say about the inquiry?
She was supporting it, and she said that she'll want it to have an interim report within 3 months. She'll want to have something from that inquiry to be reported to her.
Interim report or final report in 3 months?
It was mainly...
Or just a report?
It was a report, actually.
Okay.
Because it was anticipated that it could take more than 3 months. But within 3 months, there has to be something to be provided.
Did she address the issue of suspensions of executives?
Not directly, as far as I remember, but from the feeling that she was saying that she's not going to protect any executive anymore. So from my understanding is that there could be possible suspensions of executives from my reading of how she presented to us.
I'm sorry, just repeat that.
From the way that she spoke to us, she was endorsing the commission of inquiry, and then she was also endorsing the issues of possible suspensions. Because she had
Well,
said
it
that
wasn't
she's
a
not
commission of inquiry, isn't it? It
not
was
actually
just
the commission of
an inquiry.
Inquiry.
Yeah.
So the commission is approved by
investigation.
by the president and
Yeah. So are you saying that she touched on the suspension of executives, or are you saying she didn't address that issue?
She said that she's not going to protect them, and if we need anything from her, we must not hesitate, because she will not go far. She will go to the mall or so on, to the nearest mall there. But whenever we need her during the day, we are free to call her to come back for maybe clarification or maybe for information and so on, because she didn't stay long with us. But from the presentation, a person could sense that the issue of suspension is on the cards. But who was going to be suspended was a question mark, because we had to go and meet at the board meeting that had to continue. So
That is now after the meeting with the minister.
after the minister.
Yeah. But in terms of what was discussed between the board and the minister, have you covered the main points?
Yeah, the main points were the endorsement of the inquiry,
Yeah.
and that we need not protect anyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Select.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Baloyi, let's see what you say about this. Dr. Ngubane has testified in his affidavit to this commission. He says, the minister raised concerns about the executives, the 4 executives, and she at the end said that they should step aside. And when the minister left, the board was now convinced that this is what the shareholder wants, the inquiry and the stepping aside of the executives. What is your recollection in regard to that?
Yes, actually, the other thing that happened is that she asked the 2 executive directors to step out of the room. But before they could step out, the CEO, Matona, said that you'll want to say something before he leaves. And then he told his story about how things are, the type of steps he's trying to do to rectify things, or to go with the processes of work, or the disadvantages that are supposed to be advantaged afterwards. So he did make a short presentation, maybe of 2 to 3 minutes, somewhere there. So, and then they left, and then it's when the minister continued with the board. And your question is?
The question is this. Let me read what Dr. Ngubane says to this commission in his affidavit. He says, although the minister did not direct the board to suspend the 4 executives, she raised concerns of her own against them. the concerns related to the war room, which she suggested complaint was not receiving consistent information. The minister felt that the presence of the 4 executives might hinder the investigation. Then he says, after the meeting with the minister, it was clear to the board that government, as shareholder of Eskom, required the inquiry to proceed, and the 4 executives had to step aside whilst the inquiry was underway. So I was asking, is that consistent with your recollection?
Yeah, my recollection is that only the 3 board members the 3 executives were supposed to be suspended.
Yes, but
not 4. The 4th one happened not to be.
Okay.
Yeah, it happened to be included afterwards by the PNG committee.
Okay. So are you saying to the chairperson, it is consistent with your recollection that it was clear after the meeting with the minister that the inquiry had to happen,
yes,
and that executives, at least according to your recollection, 3 executives had to be suspended or step aside?
Yes.
So he has 4, but you say you recall 3.
Yes, it was 3 actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 3, and that I'm 100% sure.
May I proceed, Chair?
Yes, you may proceed. I think it's possible for us to finish by 1 o'clock with this witness.
Okay, let's see, Chair.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Baloyi, after the meeting with the minister, what does the board do?
The board set and identified those 3 people that had to be to be suspended, and the board identified those 3 people except the FD, and then the board said that the PNG committee, the people and governance committee, will be the one to deal with the processes that needs to take place. And then that committee said, and I asked to sit into that committee, but before that, during the board meeting, I did raise the issues of the report.
Just 1 second, Mr. Baloyi. Mr. Selega, what you can do is identify, there are a number of areas where his evidence is the same as the evidence of everybody. It's not that evidence not issue in terms of what happened. Where his evidence is the same as others, we don't need to spend much time on that. But where there are differences, then we can focus on.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
That helps me. Mr. Baloyi, let's do that. So you were talking about a report. Let me ask you specifically about that, and you can explain to the chairperson. The other board members have also come here and said, some of the board members have said to the chairperson, Mr. Tsuti said there was a report, a background report, and they wanted him to produce that report. Is that the report you are referring to?
Yes, it's the report that I'm referring to, that prior to the suspensions, we need to have right information,
yes,
so that we can have right process to take.
So are you saying to the chairperson that you made a request for that report to be provided?
Yes, I did, Chair.
And what was the response to you?
The response was that that is not our report. We must not worry about it. We have to do our own inquiry.
Can you recall who said that?
I think it is Dr. Ngubani.
Thank you. Now, take the chairperson to how the name of the financial director, Ms. Tsolomolefe, was included. You say 3 persons had been identified, and there were not 4, but subsequently we know that the FD was also suspended. Can you recall how her name was included on the list?
Yeah, her name was included during the meeting of the People and Governance. But the board...
During the meeting of
People and
Governance.
Governance Committee.
Yes.
Yeah, but the board had endorsed the 3 people. But the 4th one was not endorsed. The board was not aware about the 4th one. I mean, didn't endorse the 4th one because the inquiry was not about the financial issues, but it was mainly about these other issues.
So are you saying at the end of the board meeting that took place after the minister had left, there were only 3 executives that the board had said should be suspended? And they did not include the financial director?
Yes, yes.
And then when the P&G committee met after that board meeting, it was at that P&G meeting that her name was added. Is that what you are saying?
Yes, exactly.
Do you remember how or who added her name?
I remember Ms. Mabude to have been the one to say that because she was an audit and risk committee chairperson. So she said that there are some financial issues, so she has to be also included.
Ms. Mabude?
Yes.
Yeah, so she was the one who suggested that her name should be, the financial director's name should be included.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And did the P&G committee then accept that?
Yes, they accepted that.
Yes. Was there a debate about it with some members opposed to her inclusion and others wanting her to be included, or there was no opposition?
I think I'm the only one that could have, that actually opposed it.
Were against this idea?
Yes.
Yes.
Because it was not the idea of the board.
Because her name had not been endorsed by, had not been approved by the board as somebody to be suspended.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And you advanced this argument at the P&G meeting?
Yes. Though I was not a member, I just asked to stay on to be part of it because I was worried about the change of events that was so drastic. So I wanted to actually observe things that are happening.
Yes. And what was the response of other members at the P&G meeting to your point that, the financial director is not one of the executives that the board said should be suspended?
Actually, there was no opposition. Everyone was fine with that idea.
Sorry?
There was no opposition to that idea that she must be suspended as well.
There was no opposition to?
To the suspension proposal. Everyone was fine with that idea.
With the suspension of the executives?
Of the FD.
Of the FD?
Yes.
So you were the only one who were opposed?
Yes, yes.
And everyone else seems to be
supporting it.
To have no problem?
Yes.
Are you including Mr. Tsotsi as well? Because he said he attended that meeting. Was he not opposed to the inclusion of the financial director's name?
No, I think, you may be right that he was not actually supporting it as well.
Yes.
Yes, yes. I recall now. Thanks, Chair.
Yes. But in the end, the majority
prevailed, yes.
Were supported that she should be suspended as well.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Mr. Slager?
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Baloyi, What was your position in regard to the suspension of all of the executives?
My overall picture around it is that I could sense that between the 9th and the 11th, there could have been lots of consultations because everyone was opposed on the 9th and everyone was for it on the 11th. And my other impression is that during the breaks, one board member said that he had another meeting a day before where he was called in by the DPE officials. And he was informed that these people must be suspended tomorrow. So, and then it is when the idea of change of events came to reality that it looks like things were happening during these two periods.
Do you remember which board member said that to you?
It was the PNG chairperson, Mr. Zitembe Koza.
Who was that?
Zitembe Koza. Yeah.
He's the one who told you that he had been called to the Department of Public Enterprises and told that these executives should be suspended.
Yes, he said he met with the officials. I don't know whether it was in the DPE offices or somewhere else. But
he said he met with whom?
I'm not sure where they could have met, but he said that he met with them a day before.
With the DPE?
Yeah,
people.
he was actually called into that meeting to meet with them so that he be informed as a chairperson of PNG.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Did he say to you who else was in that meeting?
No, he didn't tell me the people that were there.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Select.
Thank you, Chair. So then the suspensions do take place. Well, just before then, Mr. Baloyi, how we know that people were appointed to act in the positions of those who were suspended or were to be suspended. Do you know how the names of those who were to act came about?
Yes, Chair. During those breaks that I said that we had several breaks.
On the 11th?
Yes, on the 11th, yeah, during the PNG meeting. There were lots of calls that were done to the presidency's office.
To the presidency?
Yeah, to the presidency's office.
Yes.
Yeah, those calls were actually inquiring who should act. Who must put so and so, must put so and so. And then the report that came was that they said we must not put this as a you must not put so and so, so and so, so and so, so and so. But the so and so and so and so are fine. And it was actually those types of consultations that were happening so that we are in line with the office of the presidency. Yes.
Who was or who were making these calls to the presidency?
Yeah, it was Dr. Ngubani. Yeah, he's the one who was calling the president's office.
Do you know whether he was the only one who was making these calls on this issue of who should act in these positions? You don't know?
I don't know who was calling, but there are people from the president's office.
Yes.
Yeah, because he did say that he has got connections in that office and then he has to consult with them whether they will approve so and so and so and so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was it Dr. Ngubane who said he did have connections at the office of the president.
Yes, he did say so.
Yes. Now, was he
Because actually, he was referred to as an ambassador.
Yes.
So, and then we could wait for him to make those consultations and then come back to us with the report.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, when he was making those calls, was he making those calls because he had been asked by the board or the PNG committee to make those calls on its behalf, or was he just making those calls on his own, as far as you know?
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I cannot recall actually whether it was his own initiative or it was the initiative of the PNG committee. But those consultations do take place.
But after making the calls, was he reporting back to the committee? Was he reporting back to say, I've been in touch with the office of the president or with the presidency, this is what they say? Was he saying that to openly, or was he saying that to you privately? How did you come to know?
No, actually, it is something which was part of the meeting, and I did see some transcriptions around that. We were waiting for his response on the consultations, the feedback.
Yes.
So it was not actually something that...
it was not something hidden.
No, it was not hidden, yes.
He was transparent about it.
Yes.
Yes.
It was not, there was no secrecy around that.
So, but, so he was making reports to the PNG committee to say, I've been in touch with the presidency. They say that the people who must act are the foreign people.
Yes.
And you are sure about that?
Yes, I'm sure of that.
Yes. Okay, Mr. Selega.
Chair, Mr. Baloyi has referred to that in his affidavit.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Mr. Baloyi, if Mr. Gubani says to the chairperson, well, the names for acting persons came from Mr. Tsotsi, what would be your response to that?
Actually, Chairperson, there were no specific people that were properly assigned to do that. Actually, it's something that I wanted to see from the committee on how are they arriving at who should act, who should not act. Because it was a new board altogether. And some of us were starting to know those executives. And some of the people, 2 people were coming from the old board. So it is possible that it was not one person who was making those inquiries or those names. It's possible. I will not actually opposed to that because there were conflicting feelings around who should act, who should not act. But one thing for sure is that we didn't have the CVs of the people in front of us.
You did not have the CVs?
The CVs of the people, so that we know who will be more suitable, who will not be more suitable.
Yes.
We didn't actually assess the candidates that should be acting.
Was there a memorandum or document that was placed before the members of the PNG committee which sought to tell the members of the PNG committee about each one of the people that were being considered for acting?
I didn't see that memorandum.
Yes.
I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying there was. I'm just asking because you say
Yeah.
there were no CVs.
There was no formal process
Yeah, there was no formal process.
of doing it. No, there was no assessments of
Yes.
why so and so is suitable than the other. There was no
Yes.
assessment.
Now, going back to the question of the names, you say, as I understand you, it is possible that there may have been more than one person phoning the presidency or obtaining names. Is that right?
Yes.
But with regard to Dr. Ngubane, do you remember that there are some names that he told the PNG committee about as people that were being endorsed by the presidency for acting, or is that something you don't remember?
Actually, what I remember are the 3 executives that left in December 2019. No, 2018. And those who were given the package. I think there were around 10 people that left, or 11 people, somewhere there were 9, around December 2018. And those executives are the ones that I identified to have been said that they are not supposed to act in the CE positions. I think there are 2 or 3 of them that I remember that these ones were out. We cannot consider these ones.
I think I'm losing
So I'm
you now.
actually,
Okay, my question was, do you remember or do you not remember whether Ms. Dr. Ngubane at any stage told the PNG committee of some of the names of people that he said were endorsed by the presidency for acting? Is that something you remember as having happened? Is that something you don't remember as having happened?
he did mention them, but I don't remember them by the names.
He did mention
raise them.
some.
He did list those that are suitable and those that are not suitable.
Yes.
I remember especially those that were not suitable, the ones that I said, they are the ones that left, that were given package in December 2018. So that the ones that I am really sure that he said that these ones are not accepted or acceptable from the office.
Mr. Slaker?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Baloyi, of those who became appointed, for instance, one, we know acting appointments. One is Ms. Nonkululeko Dlamini. Do you know whether Dr. Ngubane mentioned her name?
I don't remember, Chair.
Do you remember one of them is Mr. Sitembe Koza, who acted in the position of Mr. Matuna? Do you remember whether his name was mentioned by Dr. Ngubane?
I think his name came at the end when we could not see the suitable ones.
When you couldn't what?
When we could not actually find the ones that were pre-approved.
I see.
Because I know that he did act immediately after that.
Yes, then you will help me. Who else acted? Mr. Edwin Mabelani?
Would you be able to remember the names?
No, I will not remember the names of those that acted in all others, but I just know the FD one. And the CE, Group CE, FD and the Group CE are the ones that I'm 100% sure, that I know.
Are the ones that you are 100% sure?
That I know, yeah. The others, I'm not sure, 100%.
Yeah. Do you recall Mr. Linnell?
Yes, I remember him.
Well, I'm reminded of this before I go to Mr. Linnell. Mr. Tsotsi, on the other hand, in regard to the acting appointments, he says I stepped out of, there was a break, or he went out for lunch or for tea, whatever. When he came back, the P&G was in session. The People and Governance Committee was in session in a meeting, and he saw for the first time, upon arrival into that meeting, that the P&G had decided on who is going to be in the acting positions. And he was asking, but you are new board members, how do you know these people? Do you have any recollection of that?
Yes, I've got the recollection of that. Because it's the same question that I raised as well, that I said earlier on, that we knew, except those two people who were from the previous board, including the chairperson. He did raise that.
He did.
And what response did he get, and from who?
I don't remember the response, but the question was raised.
He said that when he testified, he said he was told that the names had been provided. Now, I can't remember whether he said he was told the names had been provided by the minister or by the presidency. But he said somebody said the names had been provided or approved. Do you remember anybody that may have said something along those lines in response to him? Or is that something you can't remember?
I cannot say with confidence, because the only person I know who was in contact with the higher offices was Dr. Ngubani. He's the only person I know.
Okay.
So we are 1 minute away from lunchtime. Sure. If we
it looks like we'll have to continue with him after 2.
Yeah, what I will do, I will try.
I think you just mentioned Mr. Linnell, so he might have something to say about Mr. Linnell. So, but maybe we should see whether if we take 30 minutes from 2 to 2:30, whether that might be enough or not. What is your sense of how much more time we need with him?
Sure, I'm unable to estimate time now.
Yeah. Okay, all right. I think that's fine. Let's adjourn.
Yes.
For lunch. We'll come back at 2. But during the break, I think you can reflect on just identifying the areas where there might be controversy about what happened.
Yes.
Or areas where other witnesses haven't been able to enlighten me on. And then we can focus more on those areas. I mean, except for the role of Mr. Linnell, I mean, we have dealt with the, except for that, I'm not sure, other than his removal, what else we may be needing to look at, but you might be able to remember over lunch.
Yeah, it will be Mr. Linnell. It will be the removal of Mr. Tsotsi.
Yeah, the charging of Mr. Tsotsi and his removal, yeah.
I think Mr. Baloyi should touch a little bit on the exit negotiations with the executives.
Yeah.
And then the last is his own removal.
Yeah. No, I think we probably should be able to finish within 30 minutes after 2. Okay, all right. We are going to take the lunch adjournment. We'll resume at 2.
Thank you.
Thank you.